Hi, 18 Cinema Summary here. Today we're going to do a recap of the film Tokyo Ghoul. It's a fantasy horror thriller about the lives of bloodthirsty creatures known as ghouls. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In today's world, humans are no longer on top of the food chain. The creatures that eat humans are the true apex predators, and they are called ghouls. The people know about it, and the government has created the Commission of Counter-Ghoul, or CCG, to deal with the ghouls. In Tokyo's Ward 20, university student Ken and his best friend, Heidi, are talking about how ghouls look like humans. That's when a girl named Rizi enters the cafe. Ken has a crush on Rizi and Heidi wants him to ask her out, but Ken is too shy. That day, his book falls on the ground, and Rizi picks it up for him. She tells him that she is reading the same book these days. So the next day, Ken is sitting with Rizi talking about books when she asks him to talk about himself. He's very nervous and even smears his face with some food that makes Rizi laugh. However, she's not eating, and when Ken asks, she says that she's on a diet. One of the waiters at the cafe is staring at them. That night, Rizi and Ken are walking on an empty street. Rizi holds Ken's hand and tells him that she likes him, and she knows he's interested in her too. She hugs him, and Ken reluctantly puts his arms around her. But as soon as he hugs her, she bites his shoulder. Ken is shocked, and in his pain, he falls down some stairs. He looks at Rizi, who's eating and enjoying his flesh. Her eyes change, and Ken figures out that she's a ghoul. Rizi brings out all her kagun while Ken tries to crawl away. As he tries to run away, Rizi stabs him with her kagun and starts to lick his blood. As Ken is wondering why this is happening to him, some steel beams fall down on Rizi. She gets crushed, and her kagun gets withdrawn into her body. Ken is free, but he's bleeding too much, and he passes out. When he wakes up, he sees a news video where the doctor is telling the press how he used Rizi's organs to save Ken's life. Meanwhile, two CCG agents Mato and Amon have killed a ghoul in Ward 20. They find a ring in the ghoul's hand. They go back to their headquarters, where they explain how the ghoul was married because he bought a pair of those rings. They are sure that his wife or breeding partner is also a ghoul. The only clue about her identity is a thread that they are researching. After the meeting, another agent from Ward 20 asks them why they are so sure that the ghoul's wife is also a ghoul. Agent Mato shows the other agent a donut and asks if he could marry it. On the other hand, Ken is going to the university for the first time after the incident. His friend Heidi wants to go for a treat. There, at the restaurant, Heidi is savoring each bite of his meat dish. While even the idea of eating that food is repulsive to Ken. He tries to take a bite, but starts choking and throwing up. That night, Ken is watching a show where an expert is explaining how a special enzyme makes it impossible for ghouls to eat any normal food. They can only eat human flesh. Hearing this, Ken tries to eat vegetables or drink milk, but it all tastes putrid to him, and he just throws up. Right then, he has a PTSD attack where he sees Rizi on top of him, trying to eat his flesh. When he realizes that it was his imagination, he goes to wash his face. There in the mirror, he sees that his left eye has turned into a ghoul's eye. Later that night, he's wandering around the busy streets, and every time he looks at a person, he starts to drool. That's when he smells some human blood, and he runs while shouting food. He walks into a dark alley, where a ghoul is eating a homeless man. The ghoul sees that Ken is hungry and offers him some human flesh, but right then, the ghoul is decapitated. This was done by another ghoul who says that this is his territory. He tries to hurt Ken, but the waitress from the cafe arrives there. She makes the ghoul leave because she works for Antiku, who manages the ghoul territories of Ward 20. Her name is Tuka, and it's not a surprise that she's also a ghoul who then eats the flesh of the homeless man. She offers some to Ken, but he runs away. The next day, he goes back to Tuka, who is closing the cafe. He asks for help because his life has become hell. Tuka figures out that he was Rizi's prey who got Rizi's organs. She doesn't want to help him and also makes him feel bad for hating ghouls when he was human. That's when the boss of Antico comes there and offers to help Ken because that's the purpose of their organization. His name is Yoshimaru, and he runs the cafe. He takes Ken to the bar, where some female ghouls are already sitting. He gives Ken coffee, and when Ken drinks it, he starts crying because it tastes good. Yoshimaru explains that ghouls can drink coffee. He also gives some human meat to Ken. At night, he's hungry and tries to eat it. But just then, Heidi knocks on his door and leaves some food outside. Seeing this, Ken decides to throw the meat away in the garbage can. Meanwhile, Amon finds out that the fiber on the ghoul was from an expensive dress. He goes to the shop that sells those dresses and takes their security footage to find out the ghoul's wife. Ken goes to the university the next day, and Heidi asks him for a favor. He wants Ken to join his college club. Heidi takes Ken to the club room to meet his senior, Nishiki. There, Ken realizes that Nishiki is the same ghoul that he saw in the alley. Heidi gives some snacks to Nishiki, who eats them without showing any inconvenience. Nishiki thinks Ken has brought Heidi to eat him, so he shoves Heidi's head into a table and knocks him out. However, Ken tries to stop him. This makes Nishiki angry, who uses his Kagun to knock Ken around the room. He then picks up Heidi, but just before he kills him, Ken releases his Kagun and pierces Nishiki. Ken has lost control, and in his anger, he stabs Nishiki with his Kagun. He also tries to eat Heidi. That's when Tuka arrives there with another ghoul, Yomo. When Ken wakes up, he's in Antico Cafe. He wants to go check on Heidi, but Yashimura tells him to let go of his former life, or he will only hurt others. They decide to hire Ken, and that's how Ken's life starts as a waiter. On the other hand, CCG has found out the ghoul's wife, and they know that the ghoul had a child as well. Meanwhile, Ryoko and her daughter Hinami are staying at the cafe where Ken is learning about the ghoul lifestyle. When he asks Yashimaru about how they get food, he's sent with Yomo to a mission. They go to a place where many people commit suicide and use their dead bodies for food. Ken develops a friendship with Hinami, who also likes to read books. However, they are told that CCG agents known as Doves are frequenting Ward 20. So they decide to move Ryoko and Hinami to Ward 24, which is considered a safe haven for ghouls. Tuka takes Ken to a mask maker to get a face mask made for him. Then one night, Hinami asks Ken to help her with reading. After this, she wants him to accompany her to the grave that has her father's things. She wants to leave some coffee beans there before she leaves the ward. Due to all the extra Dove activity, Ken decides to go there alone. However, as he's visiting the grave, a CCG agent, Kusaba, sees him. After Ken leaves, Kusaba and Amon inspect the grave. Amon and Kusaba dig up the grave and find the dead ghoul's things and a mask. The next day, Ryoko and Hinami are leaving for the Ward 24. As they leave, it starts to rain, so they take shelter under a bridge. Yashimaru, on the other hand, sends Ken after them with an umbrella. However, Mato and Amon confront Ryoko. Ryoko knows her fate, so she asks Hinami to run back. Hinami finds Ken and drags him to help her mother. But they are too late as the agents have already defeated Ryoko. They take out their weapons, which are modified Kagun, and kill Ryoko in front of Hinami's eyes. Ken takes Hinami to the cafe, and they decide to hide her there. Tuka is mad, and she wants revenge. That night, Kusaba and Amon are going home after dinner when Tuka murders Kusaba. She almost kills Amon as well, but Mato arrives there and forces Tuka to retreat. She's hurt, and Ken tries to help her, but she says that murderers like her deserve to die. She also tells Ken that he can't fight, so he can't possibly help her. So Ken goes to her to teach him how to fight. Tuka is ruthless, and she is rough on Ken, but he doesn't give up. Slowly, he starts doing all the things that only a ghoul can do. He even learns how to control his Kagun. Meanwhile, Amon is angry and upset by Kusaba's death. He trains like a madman so that he never has to see a colleague die in front of him again. One day, Mato tells Amon that they will use bait for the ghouls, and then they will exterminate them. He places Ryoko's arm in the place where she died. Hinami smells it and runs for it. Ken and Tuka realize that it's a bait, and they go after her. When Hinami reaches the bridge, Mato is there. She runs towards a canal, and their Tuka comes to help her. She tries to stop Mato, but he's too good at using his weapons. Tuka gets hurt again and again, but she doesn't stop. Meanwhile, Ken stops Amon's car by crashing it. Ken is angry too, and he starts fighting Amon in a gym building. Amon uses a strange Kagun staff, and he beats down Ken with it. However, Ken bites Amon, and just then, something changes inside him. His rage leads to his Kagun coming out, and he beats Amon. They fight all over the gym, and neither of them wants to back down because they think they are right. However, ghouls regenerate fast, and humans don't. So when Amon falls down from a height, he's almost paralyzed. Ken overcomes him, and he has bloodlust in his eyes. He's happy to see how helpless Amon is, and he's laughing hysterically. But then he sees his shadow in a pool of blood. He's horrified by what he has become, and he doesn't want to become a murderer. He regains control of his emotions, and leaves Amon alive. On the canal, Mato uses a weapon made from Ryoko's Kagun to take down Tuka. Tuka tells him that it's not her fault that she has to eat humans. But Mato believes that ghouls have no right to live. He tries to kill Tuka, but loses his arm. Hinami has brought out her Kagun, and she cuts Mato's arms. However, she doesn't want to kill him, so Tuka lands the killing blow, and they leave that place with Ken. A few days later, Hinami moves to a safer place, and Ken is crying like a child. His eyes have become normal now, and he doesn't need an eye patch. The film ends with Ken staring at his Antika family. And that wraps up our recap for the movie Tokyo Ghoul. Feel free to drop a comment below as to what we should recap next. Thank you for watching.